Hello, it's John Heaton, and today, again, I'm going to do something a bit different because I normally stick to music on this channel. But this week is the 25th anniversary of one of my favourite ever TV series of all time. And it's a BBC series from January. It aired from January till March 1996, and it's called Our Friends in the North. And I'm not sure how well it translates outside of Great Britain, because it's very much about our history, but I encourage any of you to check it out, and if you can understand the Newcastle accents and get past that, I think you'll find it very entertaining television. It's wonderfully written by a guy called Peter Flannery, and it's about four young people growing up in Newcastle, and it follows their life from when they were pretty young to when they were approaching middle age. And it's set between the years of 1964 and it ends in 1995. Originally it was going to be a stage play. In fact, it was a stage play held at Stratford, and then it moved to London and Newcastle, I think. And Jim Broadbent was in the stage production. At that stage it was only going up to 1979. Then various people came and went in the BBC. Michael Grade came in and he wasn't keen on it, so it got shelved. But then it got resurrected, and finally it's ended up being broadcast in early 1996. And it's a really strong piece of work. Some people have described it as a soap opera, a glorified soap opera, but it's a lot more than that. Other people have, most of the reviews were favourable, by the way, from the critics. Some people have described it as a pretty thorough history of the Labour Party in the UK. Because it focuses on three lads from Newcastle and one girl, and they're all pretty much Labour supporters, and one follows their fortunes as they go through getting married, getting divorced, becoming involved in politics, becoming disillusioned with politics, and it's where are my notes? It's wonderfully even-handed because it has a go at the Labour Party and the corruption within the Labour Party, but then it has a go at the local government and the corruption in terms of bribes being handed left, right and centre to get housing contracts, and the police force doesn't escape a thorough going over in terms of the corruption which existed in the mid-60s. Particularly in connection with the Soho area of London, where all the sex shops sprang up, and instead of banning the sex shops, the police took backhanders from the owners of the sex shops in order so they could stay open, and if they failed to hand over money to the police, they would get closed down. It was as simple as that. And then what else comes in for stick? The police, as I said, comes in for stick, particularly the episode in the miners' strike in 1984. So it's compulsive viewing. One doesn't have to necessarily share all the political sentiments of the writer to enjoy the television and the performances. The characterization, as you can imagine, over nine episodes of mostly more than an hour long, you have a long time to develop the characters, and this is the front cover, and you might recognise a couple of people on the front there. I'll tell you, Christopher Eccleston is playing Nicky Hutchinson. He went on to become the 9th Doctor Who and has done lots of other stuff like Cracker and lots of other stuff. Sorry, can't remember off the top of my head, but he's a very well-known British actor, actually born the same year as me, as it happens. Daniel Craig is the current James Bond, and he's been in things over the years, a lot of things, but this is what made the break for him, this role, playing Geordie Peacock. Mark Strong plays Tosca Cox. He's done some good stuff as well. The Long Firm, for example. Gina McKee plays Mary Cox, and this is Gina McKee. This is Mark Strong. playing Tosca, Daniel Craig playing Geordie Peacock, and Christopher Eccleston playing Nicky Hutchinson. And none of them are from, I don't think any of them are from Newcastle, so they all had to practice a Newcastle accent. This is a middle-aged Geordie Peacock, Daniel Craig. I think they pulled it off pretty well. Benny Barrett, the King of Soho, with all his girls there. A young Tosca and Geordie in Soho, mid-60s. 1970 episode, Geordie and Nicky, long hair. And the beauty of this show is that they grow their hair and change their clothes according to the fashions of the time. So in this 1970 episode, they look like hippies. And by the time 1979, they're all going to discos and trying to hide the bald patch on their head and stuff like that, which is quite amusing. But apart from the four main characters, you've got Peter Vaughan playing Felix Hutchinson, Nicky's father. And he's been on loads of stuff over the years, sadly no longer with us. He played Grouty opposite Ronnie Barker in Porridge, famously. He was only in 2 or 3 episodes, but he was very memorable, probably best remembered for that. Malcolm McDowell plays Benny Barrett, and he's a famous British actor, probably best known for his portrayal of the lead character in Clockwork Orange, the Kubrick film from 1970 or 71. Alan Armstrong plays Austin Donahue, and I was just watching another film about Newcastle, or set in Newcastle partly, which is Get Carter from 1971 with Michael Caine. And then, to my delight, Alan Armstrong is in this film as well. Not a particularly major role, but this film really shows you what Newcastle was like in the pre-modernisation days. Nowadays, if you go to Newcastle, it's been, the riverfront has been modernised. There's posh shops and pedestrianised city centre, and it doesn't look quite so industrial because it isn't so industrial these days. But back in the 60s, early 70s, it was still got quite a lot of evidence, like the slag heaps being transported up the beach in this film are particularly memorable. So just thought I'd mention that. We've also got the list is endless in terms of who's in this series. By the way, it took up more or less the entire BBC Two drama budget for the whole year of 1995, I suppose it was when they made it. 96 it was broadcast. David Bradley, who pops up on our screens on a regular basis. He played William Hartnell in the film about Doctor Who, which came out on the 50th anniversary. He plays Eddie Wells, the Labour politician who ends up falling out. Well, I won't give you any spoilers in case you want to watch it. Frida Dowie plays Flora Hutchinson. Donald Sumpter is wonderfully seedy and untrustworthy as Commander Harold Chappell, as is David Schofield playing John Solway. They're pretty good at playing baddies. I've seen them pop up over the years playing various roles, and they seem to play that role well. Peter Jeffrey is playing the Commissioner of the Police Force, and he's a face which pops up on our screens. I remember him playing a cameo in Rising Damp, the comedy in the 70s. Tony Haygarth is superb as Roy Johnson, who's trying to wheedle out the corruption from the police force. He doesn't succeed, unfortunately. Tracy Wilkinson is pretty memorable as Elaine Cox. Jeffrey Hutchings as John Edwards. A lot of these characters, I've actually mislaid my notes, but here they are. A lot of the characters in this show were based on real life people. So Austin Donahue was based on a character called T. Dan Smith. John Edwards was based on a character called John Powelson. Claude Seabrook was based pretty much on Reginald Maudling, who was the Home Secretary under Edward Heath, early 70s. Benny Barrett, apparently based on the pornographer James Humphreys. And Alan Rowe, based on a character called Sir John Hall. So apparently some people tried to sue. Well, but having said that, I think some of these people were dead by the time this hit the TV screens. Did I mention that Jim Broadbent was in the original RSC production, stage production, playing Austin Donahue? So each episode covers a kind of era, 3 or 4 year era, or in the case of 1987, just the 1 year. And that's a very depressing episode. I won't give anything away, but that's, out of all the 9 episodes, that's the one which really takes one's spirits down, and I'm not going to give you anything more than that, other than to say the Great Storm of '87 is featured in that episode. It wasn't actually filmed in Newcastle. It was filmed around Watford and the beach scenes in Folkestone in Kent. Mark Strong is on record saying Christopher Eccleston took a dislike to him during the making of this, and other than the scenes together, they didn't speak at all during the whole making of Our Friends in the North, which is a little bit disappointing to hear. What else have I got to say? A great music band called Splinter, who were on George Harrison's Dark Horse label, were from Newcastle. So I'd quite like to go there just to see, you know, where these are fictional characters, of course, but just because of Our Friends in the North, I'd like to visit Newcastle, and also because of Get Carter and because of Splinter. It's also worth mentioning this bridge here, the big bridge in Newcastle, is where they filmed the last closing scene, where Geordie Peacock leaves the house of Nicky Hutchinson after the funeral and walks over the river, looks down and sees Tosca and his family happy on the river, and he's alone. He's contemplating what to do next with his life. He's gone through a rough period and he hasn't come out of it quite yet, but he's walking towards the future, and the song playing over the background is Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis. And they got permission to use this song months and months before, and then very fortuitously, in the meantime, Oasis released it as a single, and when that final episode went out, it was #1 in the charts, so that was wonderful. And apparently Noel has mentioned it in interviews. No doubt I think he probably would be impressed with this series. I haven't met anyone who's read it, who's not been impressed, who's seen it. A couple of friends of mine, Warren and Sean no longer with us, sadly, used to hold marathon sessions where you just watch the whole you just binge watch the whole thing. And this was before the days of Netflix, so pick up the DVD. It was repeated a couple of times on BBC, but it's still not available. If you want to check it out, I'm not sure how you're going to, because I think the only way you can get it is on DVD, or maybe you can get it on YouTube. I'm not sure. I haven't tried. So that was that. Thoroughly recommended, and thank you for watching. See you next time.